Hey guys, I know it's been a very long time since my last video, but that was because this video took a lot of planning, filming, refilming, plus this video is going to be quite lengthy. That's due to the amount of information in this content. I was also trying to make like this contraption that helped me film bird's eye view of the things that I was trying to show you guys. I'll show you that later. First, I'm going to sort of revamp the entire desk behind me so that it would be more film friendly and that it's not so hard to, get good camera angles near it. And yeah, let's get started on how 3D printing works for beginners. To begin, there are many different types of 3D printing, some of which include dipping a plate into resin over and over again to basically make layers of plastic. This is called SLA. And there are some which include lasers melting powder, and this is called SLS. And there are some which involves melting plastic and layering it up. This is called FDM or FFF 3D printing. There are a lot more other types, but today I will be focusing on FDM 3D printing, which is basically the layering up of plastics. There are 4 different types of FDM or FFF 3D printers. If you're interested in the different types, I have an article in the description if you guys want to check it out. But essentially, FDM 3D printing follows one single principle, and that is just melting a spool of plastic and layering it up on a build plate. That's essentially 3D printing in FDM. So now let's talk about the important parts of a machine. First, it's the build plate. Sometimes it's called the print bed, but essentially what it is the platform in which the machine builds upon. Secondly, there is the extruder, hot end, and cooling fan. These are all part of one unit, the print head. This basically prints the piece. Like, this is the piece that moves around and brings plastic wherever you want it, or wherever it's told to be put. The extruder pulls the plastic into the hot end, which melts it and extrudes it onto the build plate. And the cooling fan is there to cool the extruded plastic afterwards to make sure that it cools properly. Very important part of any printer is the ink, but in this case, a spool of plastic. There are many different types of plastics that can be used for 3D printing. The plastic that I use is PLA. Other people use ABS, PETG, all these other types of plastics with different names. Essentially, they all have their own properties. Some of them are stretchier, some of them are more brittle, some of them are harder, some of them are stronger. Really depends. Now that we have some of the technicalities aside, let's talk about the workflow. 3D printing is not simply a plug and play. You probably heard this before from some other videos, but what it's basically trying to say is that you don't just plug in the 3D printer and expect it to turn plastic into gold. What I mean is that a 3D printer isn't there to just instantly create your dreams. A 3D printer is basically just a tool. It's a tool as anything else that you would use, a drill, a screwdriver, right? I mean, obviously it's a lot more advanced and a lot cooler, I guess. But essentially, a 3D printer is a tool to help you create what's in here. So now let's go through an example of my workflow during a 3D print. First, I begin by thinking about what I want or need. It could either be a glasses stand, or it could be a spool holder, Doesn't matter. Maybe it's my battery canister. It's up to you, whatever you want. Then you can either look online, or if you want to skip that step, go straight into designing whatever you want. For me, most of the times, I check online to see if the product is there. If it's there and it's not that great, I still design it myself. But if it's there and it's many upvotes, many thumbs ups, all those, then I'll be like, hey, why should I design another one if it's already out there? However, sometimes other people have 3D printers with different tolerances compared to ours, or whichever one you have. And it sort of messes up the specs, I guess, the dimensions of the piece. So while designing, I account for supports and overhangs. I'll talk about this more later on in maybe another video, maybe later on in this video. After I'm done designing, I put my piece into a slicing software. A slicing software essentially is like a translator that translates my design into some code that the 3D printer can read. And this code is essentially called G code. And basically, the slicer cuts my piece up into many different layers and tells my printhead where to be at a specific time. So let's say I'm making a cylinder. It would draw a circle, go up one layer and draw another circle, and go up one layer, and then keep on doing that until it makes whatever height of a circle that I want it to, cylinder that I want it to be. Anyhow, once I export this print into the printer, I let it do its thing. When a printer is done printing, I usually move on to what's called post-processing. Essentially, this could be sanding, painting, filing, cutting off, who knows what. For example, this glasses stand that I had is made of 3 different pieces. And this initially was not designed that well. I try to have a press fit type of piece that, pushes this into this, but then the piece here was way too big and it wouldn't fit properly. So I had to cut it off and super glue it together. And that's part of post-processing. It comes out with results that look pretty decent. And with a 3D printer, you want to focus on post-processing as much as you can because that determines how everything turns out. It could look ugly as in a sense where if you want some smooth surface, it'll have a lot of layer lines. But we can talk all about post-processing and, more examples of it in the next video, which is going to be specifically about the design process. Okay, let's move on. So my basic point about this is that 3D printing isn't just printing anything that you want. First, you'll need a design. Secondly, it takes time to post-process as well as print itself. So you might read saying, oh, okay, the printer says it'll take 3 hours to print. But in reality, it might take you a total of 4 hours, maybe cleaning up the print bed, cleaning up the piece, printing the piece, and, post-processing. Designing the piece as well. So yeah, that's my workflow. Well, most people's workflow during 3D prints. Sometimes people make huge pieces like helmets or cosplay that take many hours to print and even more hours to put together, paint, test it, Testing, prototyping is one of the main points of 3D printing. And yeah, if you can see on my left, or your left as well, there's this little demonstration of how I clean up a part. And essentially this one was very simple because there wasn't much to clean up. But on more extravagant parts, there's way more to clean up and way more to, beautify. Post-processing is basically the end of your project, and once you're done, that's basically it. And if you like the results, then yeah, keep it. If the results aren't what you desired, maybe you have to start all over again, except you'll have more experience this time. Anyhow, this is going to conclude my video. The next video is going to be a more in-depth design process, and it's coming out really soon. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, got something out of it, maybe some laughter from my mistakes, maybe some experience, maybe some inspiration. And anyhow, thank you for watching. Subscribe and like if you like the video, and yeah, see you guys next time.